Okay, good. Now let's look at requirement B, the B part of the requirement of the question. Now the B part is saying we should what? Make an assessment of the firm's expected cost of debt, cost of equity, and weighted average cost of capital after the redemption of the existing debt and the issue of the new bond. I believe you can still remember the scenario. The scenario again, let me just give an overview before we continue. This company, Jupiter, currently has several debts raised in zone, and these several debts, the question let us know that they averagely they have a coupon rate of 5.6%. We have many debts, but the average coupon rate is what? 5.6%, and average year of maturity is 4 years. That's the information of the current debt. And the question is considering a scheme where the company will be redeeming the existing loan, which is a 400 million. Okay, the company will be redeeming that 400 million and replacing it with 2,400 million of debts. Okay, we'll be replacing it with 2,400 million of that same debt. So, but this 2,400 million will be raised from two jurisdictions. Okay, in Japan and in Europe. Okay, equally, and it's going to be a 10-year loan. It's going to be a 10-year loan. And the question gave us information on the yield to maturity for both 4-year loan and for 10-year loan for both zone, Japan and the Euro. So from this information, we have computed our current cost of debt, which is what we have here, current cost of debt, okay, current cost of debt. How did we compute that? Let us refer by getting the yield to maturity
Gas network is bad too.
of European government bond for 4 years. If you look at other 4 years, European government bond 2%, to percentage. And how do you do that? You simply divide the basis point by 100, and you get your what? You get your credit premium. So the addition of the yield to maturity on the government bond and the credit spread, which is credit premium, is your cost of debt pre-tax. So we computed our cost of equity using capital asset pricing model. Then we computed our WACC. We computed our WACC using the information there. And however, for us to compute our WACC, we need market value of equity, we need market value of debt. For the market value of equity, how did we get it? We got it by discounting the interest payment on the debt. Okay, you know we are computing the current cost of debt, current WACC rather. Now, the current debt is having 4-year maturity. Okay, it's having current. The cash flow, which is the interest there, 5.6% times 800 million give us 44.4. And the relation is at par, which is 800. So I've told you that for you to get the market value of debt, take note, for you to get the market value of debt, you have to discount interest, okay? You have to discount interest. You see the cost of the debt, and you also discount the redemption value at the end of the debt. Sum the two together, you get the market value of the debt. And that was how we got our market value of debt in our previous class. Now, on that basis, we computed our current WACC to be what? 7.95%. That was what we did on Saturday. So let's now see the requirement B now. For requirement B, we want to compute. We want to compute expected cost of debt, expected cost of debt, cost of equity, and WACC. The first one was what? Current. The second one we want to do now is expected. Expected means after you have now redeemed what? The existing debt, and you have replaced it with what? With the new debt. What's going to be the cost of debt? What's going to be the cost of equity? And what is going to be the WACC? Okay, that is what we want to do now. Now, you know that the proposed debt is going to be issued in 2 zones, in Japan and in the Euro. So we are going to compute the cost of each debt because there are different jurisdictions now. We are told that the debt is going to be 50-50 from the 2 zones. So what do? We compute cost of debt for the Japanese debt, we compute cost of debt for the European debt, then you take the average of the 2. That will give you the revised cost of debt. So let's calculate it. Revised, or let me use the expected that I started with. Expected cost of debt. Expected cost of debt. So what do? Let me start with Japanese bond. we want to use in Japan. So Japanese bond. Japanese bond. So the one we are using in Japan, you go to where you have yield to maturity of 10 years. You know, under the yield to maturity, you look at your material, we have 4 years, we have 10 years. We have dealt with one that is having 4 years. Now, that's the existing current debt, is one that is having 4 years. Now, we are on the one that is for 10 years. So we are moving to the column where you have 10 years. The column where you have 10 years, if you want to obtain Japanese loan for 10 years, the yield to maturity is going to be what? 1.8%. So what will I do? I put my yield to maturity, yield maturity, yield to maturity, that's for 10 years, is 1.8%. Then what's the credit risk premium? 10 years. Go and check it there. The credit risk premium for 10 years, Japanese credit premium, credit risk premium. Credit risk premium will now be 50 all over 100. And that gave us what? 0.5%. So add these two together. Add these two together. Sorry. Add these two together. We have what? We have 1.3%. Am I correct? Okay, 2.3%. Yeah, 2.3%. 1.8 plus 0.5. Yeah, 2.3%. Sorry, I'm having cold. That's why my voice is not that clear. You see, I just give hot water. So 2.3% is our cost of debt for the Japanese bond. But you know, the bond is not only going to be raised in Japan, Abi. 50% in Japan. What about the remaining 50%? The remaining 50% is going to be raised in the euro. So I come to European bond. European bond. So the same thing we did. What's the yield to maturity for 10 years? European bond. Yield to maturity. I've told you this is a potential examination question. So you need to understand what I'm doing, please. You need to understand so that when you go to the exam, you now see this, you say, oh, I did not take it seriously then. Please be serious about it. Then what is the credit risk premium? Credit risk premium. The credit risk premium for European bond is 85. So 85 divided by 100 will give us what? 0.85. 0.85. So 0.85%, add this together as well. What do we have? Add this together, we have 4.6.85, 5.45%. We have 5.45%. 5.45%. That is what we have. That's what we have. So now, what do I now do? I will now take the average of the two. You will take the average of the two. Take the average of the two. So my cost of debt is going to be the average. Cost of debt, AD, pre-tax, don't forget, is pre-tax. It's going to be equal to 2.3 plus 2.3% plus 5.45%. Then divided by what? This plus this. Everything over what? Over 2. That is your cost of debt. So 2.3 plus 5.45 divided by 2 will give you what? 3.875. 3.875%. That is the expected cost of debt. Any question on this, please? Any question? Any question on this? No question, right? Okay. If there is no question, then we go to the next one. Expected cost of equity. Expected cost of equity. How do you think I'll get this expected cost of equity? Can you unmute yourself and talk? Anybody? How do we get our expected cost of equity? Let me see whether you understand. Yes? How do we get our expected cost of equity? Mrs. Shea, do you want to talk?
I'm not talking, sir.
Okay. Now, if you look at what we did up here, for the current cost of equity, what did we use? We use CAPEM, and we use current beta. What's the current beta? Please, beta is not percentage. What's the current beta? Current beta is 1.5, Abi. Now, do you think it will be appropriate for me to use that 1.5 as my beta here? No. Do you know the reason? This 1.5 equity beta, don't forget, equity beta measures how many risks? 2, Abi?
Yes.
Business risk and financial what? And financial risk. These are the 2 risks that your equity beta measures. Now, it means that this 1.5 equity beta that the company currently has is measuring the business risk of Jupiter and the financial risk of Jupiter when Jupiter is having 400 million debts. Do you understand that? This was the equity beta when Jupiter was having what? 400 million debt. But now, Jupiter is now having 2,000, was it 400 million or 800 million? The current debt, sorry, 800 million. When Jupiter was having 800 million debt, is when it was having a beta of 1.2. Now that Jupiter will do away with this 800 and replace it with 2,400, do you think the equity beta will remain the same? The equity beta will not remain the same because the debt has increased. It used to be 800, but now it is what? 2,400. So that beta will change. The beta will change because the beta will change each time you add additional risk to your capital structure. Okay? So what do we now do? The best thing we can do now is for us to get the asset beta of Jupiter currently. When beta is having 800 million, what is the asset beta? How will I get that? I will get the asset beta by ungearing the current equity beta at 800 million level of debt. That's the first thing you need to do. So my current beta of equity is equal to 1.5. Now, what's the current debt? The current debt of Jupiter. Current debt is $800 million. $800 million. What is the current equity? Current, however, you know we are using market value, don't forget. So I think it's 827.36. We are using market value, 827.36. So that's current value of debt. Let me put it that way. Current market value of debt. So what is the current market value of equity? Current market value of equity is, what did you compute earlier? That is 6,750. 6,750. Now, when we have this, we now go and what? Ungear the beta of equity. Go and ungear the what? Go and ungear the beta of equity. So for us to ungear, let me go and bring down the formula. I would have done it straight, but so that you can follow it easily, let me just go and bring down the formula. We are ungearing. So we have this formula. Ungearing, I put this formula there. So I have this, sorry. That's not what I wanted to pick up. Did I write out the formula? Okay, yeah, I did. This is the formula here. Okay, this is the formula here to ungear. So our beta of asset will be equal to our beta of equity, which is 1.5, into bracket market value of equity, 6,750 plus, sorry, all over market value of equity, 6,750 plus what? Market value of debt, 827.36, I mean, 0.36 into bracket 1 minus, what's the tax rate? What tax rate did we use before? Let me check. The tax rate is 25%. 25%, 0.25. So that's the first one. I close this again. Plus, do you have beta of debt? No. So since there is no beta of debt, it will be plus 0. There's no beta of debt. So beta of assets will be equal to 1.5 into bracket 6,750 all over 6,750 plus 827.36 into bracket 0.75. Close the bracket. The second one here will not be necessary. So beta of assets will be equal to 1.5 into bracket 6,750. 6,750 all over. So let us get our figure here. 827.36 times 0.75 gave me 620.52 plus 6,750 will give me what? Will give me 7,370. 7,370.52. Okay. So what do? I will now multiply. Beta of asset is equal to 1.5 times 6,750 all over 7,370.52. That's 1.37. 1.37. This is the asset beta. That is business risk. Don't forget, this is what? This is a business risk factor. This is a business risk factor. So I haven't gotten the business risk factor here. What do? It means we have eliminated the effect of the current debt of 800 million. We have eliminated it from that beta. So I'm now having an ungeared beta. Now, you will now go and recognize the effect of the new debt. that the company want to raise. We have, because the first debt will be what? Will be redeemed. It will be repaid. Abi? So we need to do away with the effect of that or the better. Then the second one will now be raised. The new debt will now be raised, which is a 2,400. We now recognize the effect of the new debt on the asset better in order to get another equity better when the company takes up the new debt. So let's do that. So that is what we are regearing. Reject the better of assets using the proposed what? Using the proposed debt issue. Using the proposed debt issue. So now, what's the formula? Let me go and bring the formula before I explain this. Let me go and bring down the formula. If I want to reject, okay, this is the formula we want to reject. We want to reject. We want to get the formula. Now, we already know the market value of equity. Market value of equity will not change. But what about market value of debt? Don't forget, in the earlier requirement A, how did we get our market value of debt? We discounted interest using the cost of debt. Now, in this second requirement, I know my cost of debt to be 5.554%. And I know the amount of debt the company want to raise is 2,400 million. But do I know the coupon? Do I know the interest rate on the debt? No. I don't know the interest rate on this debt. So what would be my assumption? My assumption here in this regard is that the cost of debt of 5.45% is also the coupon rate of the debt. That is the assumption I am going to make. Anytime you have cost of debt, you are not having an interest rate. So you assume the cost of debt is the same as the interest rate. It can be the other way around. You can have the interest rate, okay? I do have the cost of debt. However, if you have the interest, I do have the cost of debt. You can compute the cost of debt, okay, by using your appropriate formula, whether the debt is redeemable or irredeemable. You understand? But in a situation where you have cost of debt, but you don't have the interest rate, then the cost of debt is assumed to be equal to the interest rate. Now, normally, let me state this, expected cost of debt, the way we computed there, expected cost of debt, I think we have done it there. It's up there. Yeah, this is it. I don't think I need to repeat it because I've already done it. Expected cost of debt. Yeah, it's already there. I don't need to repeat it. I don't want the repetition to be too much. Now, this is my expected cost of debt. Abi? So, and I'm not saying that my expected coupon rate, which is interest rate, my expected interest rate is equal to what? Is equal to 5.45%. That is what? Is the same as expected KD, as expected cost of debt. And I've told you the reason. Because it is not given. You only have a cost of debt. Interest rate is not given. We're going to assume that the interest rate is the same thing as the cost of debt. That is what I'm going to assume. Okay, if that is the case, it therefore means that I need to discount my interest, using the cost of the debt. Now, let me tell you, though I'm going to practicalize it for you. But let me let you know that in a situation where you have the cost of the debt to be the same thing as the interest rate, I want to believe I can't be writing everything. That's why I said you should always have your jotter with you. If I say something that I do not write down, you need to jot it. Where you have the interest rate and the cost of debt to be the same, the book value of the loan will be the same thing as the market value. Okay? Where you have the cost of the debt to be the same as the interest rate of the debt, then the market value of the debt will be the same as the book value of the debt. Now, let us prove this. Let us compute our market value of debt. You see what I'm talking about? Expected market value. Expected market value of debt. Expected market value of debt. Let's compute that. Now, I need my interest, I mean, I need my interest, and my interest is 5.45% of how much debt are we issuing? $2,400 million. $2,400 million. So that should give us what? So let's compute it. 0.0, 0.0545 times 2,400 should give me 130.8. 130.8. And the redemption value, the question does not give you information on redemption. So we assume that the redemption value will also be at par of 2,400, because the question does not tell you that it's going to be redeemed at premium, except where the question tells you that this debt will be redeemed at a premium. Is then you use the redemption value to be you compute the what? The redemption rate, the redemption value using a premium. But where the question is silent, then you are going to assume that the debt will be redeemed at par. I believe these explanations are very clear. Okay, please let them sink and ensure that you understand what we are doing. Now, even though I can want to repeat this question, the figures might not be the same. So if you have crammed, you have only succeeded in wasting your time, because the figure will not be the same. It will be the same approach, the figures, the names might be different. So if you have crammed, then it will be an issue. This is Chimwe. Can you please mute your audio?
Yeah,
Can you please or you want to ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Sir, please, this question, you said, please come again. You said, where the first of debt. Hello, sir.
I can hear you.
When you said this last time you were trying to explain where the cost of debt is the same with the
interest rate. Okay. What I said was that in a question where you are given cost of debt, but you are not given the interest rate, okay? Or you computed cost of debt, but interest rate was not given in the question. What you should assume is that the cost of the debt is the same thing as the interest rate, okay? And in a situation where the cost of debt and the interest rate are the same, the book value of that debt and the market value will also be the same. Do you understand? In a situation where the cost of the debt and the interest rate are the same, then the book value of the loan and the market value will also be the same. And that is what, normally in the exam, I will not do this because I already know the principle. But I want to let you know the reason so that you know that you don't have to waste your time computing market value of debt in a question where you have both the cost of the debt and the interest rate on the debt to be the same. That's what we want to do here. Now, This debt has 10 years. I mean, I have my year, I have my cash flow. The same thing we did under uh, requirement A, cash flow. I have my DCF. Let me use table straight. I beg. I don't waste my time. It's easier to navigate with table. Year, cash flow, space, cash flow, discount factor. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this should be enough for me. So we have here A, cash flow, DCF at what? At the cost of debt, which is 5.45%. Then we have the present value. We have the present value. Now, the first is year 1 to 10. I mean, year 1 to 10. Year 1 to 10. Sorry. Year 1 to 10. Year 1 to 10. Now adjust this. Okay. Year 1 to 10, and we have year 10. Okay. Year 1 to 10, year 10. So this is what we have. So year 1 to 10 is going to be what? Interest. And I've told you the type of interest you need is what? Not net interest, not interest after tax. No, it's pre-tax interest. Pre-tax what? Interest, not post-tax interest. Please take note. So the interest we computed is 130.8. That's our interest, 130.8. Then discount factor 5.45% year 1 to 10. And we have 1 minus 1.0545 raised to power minus 10 divided by 0.0545. That gives me 7.556. I believe you are following it. 7.556. Now, in year 10, I have 1.0545 raised to power minus 10. And that gives me 0.588. 0.588. That's a redemption value. Redemption value. Redemption value. Okay. If this is the redemption value, then I can have a, where did I put it? Sorry. I put it in the wrong place. Let me copy it, paste it here. The redemption value is 2,400. 2,400 million. That's the redemption value. Okay. So let us multiply. We now have 7.556. 7.556 times 130.8. That gives me what? 988.32. Then, excuse me. Excuse me, please. Okay. So, for year 10, we have 2,400 times 0.588. That gives me 14112. 14112.2. Now, add these two together. We have our present value. Add these two together. 1412 plus 988.32. What do you have? 2399 point, sorry, 1411.2 plus 988.32. 2399.52. Can you see this? You can see that we still came back to what? We came back to the book value of the debt. Can you see that? This is the book value of the debt. This is the market value. The difference of 0.00001 is just due to what? Due to the approximation. You know, we approximated our discount factor here. That was the reason why we got a 2399 this. So that confirms that in a situation where your cost of debt is the same thing as the interest rate of the debt, then the book value of the debt will be the same thing as the market value. It will be the same thing as the market value. Okay? I believe that is clear. So in the exam, I won't need to do this. I don't need to do it because I already know the principle. Okay? So we cannot go and what? And reject, Nabi. Can go and reject. Beta of equity is equal to beta of asset, which is 1.37. Was it 1.37? Yes, 1.37 plus 1.37 minus 0 times market value of debt 2,400 into bracket 1 minus 0.25 all over market value of equity 6,750. So our beta of equity will be equal to 1.37 plus 1.37 close bracket times 2,400 times 0.75 will give me 1,800 all over 6,750 will give me 0.267. 0.267. So beta of equity will be equal to 0.267 times 1.37 plus 1.37. That is 1.74. 1.74 is my beta of equity. Consider, you see that before the beta of equity, when we have 800 million of debt was 1.5. Now that we let that for 800 million debt go and we replace it with 2,400 debt, our beta of equity is now 1.74 because it means that we are now very risky. Okay, our company is now very risky. So the beta of equity must go up. The beta of equity must go up. Okay, it must go up. Any question on this before we continue? Any question before we continue? Question?
No question, sir.
Okay, thank you. So from here, we cannot compute our what? Cost of equity. We can compute our cost of equity. You see what? Cost of equity using CAPEL. Using CAPEL. So we can use to compute our cost of equity. No mind me, I'm very lazy. I hate rewriting formula all the time. Okay, that's my nature. So you just have to bear with me. Okay, you have to bear with me. I don't like writing like that. So 4%, 1.74. So 1.74 times 3 plus 1.74, 6.96%. 6.96. No. Are you sure? 1.74 times 3 plus 4. 9.22%. 9.22%. That's our new cost of equity. What has happened? Cost of equity went up from 8.5% to what? 9.22%. Simply because the company has what? Has increased its gearing. So equity holders will require additional risk premium to compensate them for the additional risk associated with a higher level of gearing. That is the reason why the cost of equity went up from 8.5% to 9.22%. Good. So we can now compute our expected what? Expected weighted average cost of capital. So expected WACC, where's our WACC formula? Where's our WACC formula? Where's our WACC formula? This is the WACC formula. I simply bring this one down. This is my WACC formula. So this is the WACC formula. What is the cost of equity? 9.22. Okay, let me just rewrite it again. 9.22%. 9.22% times 6,750. 6,750. So I have a 6,750 plus 2,400 now. That's the new debt. 2,400. I come here, cost of debt, which is a 5.5. Let me go and confirm it too. Let me go and write rubbish. Okay, 5.45. Okay. 5.45% times market value of debt, 2,400. Then all over the same 6,750 plus 2,400. Who can tell me what I've done here? Who can tell me the error I have made? I made an error here. Who can tell me the error? Who can tell me the error in my solution here? If you cannot tell me the error, it means you have not understood cost of capital. That's what it means. So what is the error here? Nobody?
Because of value of debt.
The what? Mrs. Chiwe, go ahead.
The value of debt should be net of tax.
Not the value, the cost of debt.
Cost of debt.
Yeah. So it should be
Cost
what?
of should be net of tax.
1 minus 0.25. Thank you. So that was the error I made. So this 1 minus tax. So anytime you are using pre-tax cost of debt, you need to make this adjustment. Please don't forget. Don't forget. Anytime your cost of debt is pre-tax, you need to incorporate that adjustment to it. So what would be equal to 9.22 times 6,750 will give me 62,235. 62,235 all over 6,750 times 24 plus 2,400. That is 9,150. 9,150 plus 5.45 times 0.75 times 2,400 will give me 9,810, 9,810 all over 9,150. 9,150. So my work will be equal to 62,235 divided by 9,150. That gave me 6.8%. 6.8% plus the second one is 9,310 divided by 9,150, and that is 1.07. Let's say 1.1%. So what is our work? Work is 1.1 plus 6.8. Work is 7.9%. 7.9%. What was our work before? Our work before was 7.9, and now is what? Now is what? Oh, sure. There's no mistake there. Let's see again. This 8.5. Okay. Okay, I know what happened. It's from my own approximation. This one is 7.95%. Yeah. This is 7.95%, and this one is 7.9%. So a small change in work. A small change in work due to a small change. You can see that this is also a small change in the cost of equity. So that is that about requirement B. That is that about requirement B. So requirement C. Requirement C is what? An assessment of the minimum rate of return that the company needs to earn on the debt capital before interest is paid. Before interest is paid. So minimum return. Let me put that computation of what? Computation of minimum return on the new debt. On the new debt, minimum required return, not just return. Minimum required return on the new debt before interest is paid. Before interest is paid. Minimum return on the new debt before interest is paid. Now, what does the question want us to do here? 1 minute, please. Okay, let us continue. What does the question want us to do here? You know that before the company has a 800 million debt, and now the company is, if we want to maintain our current profitability, okay, we want our current profit to be maintained, or at least be at the current level, okay? What should be the additional return this debt must generate so that at least we should be able to maintain our current return? Let's go back to this question. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Can you see the question before me, example 5?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to show you something. Now, the question tells us that the company currently earns a free cash flow to equity of 400 million. Now, pardon me here, we have not done free cash flow to equity. So I am not trying to teach you free cash flow to equity here. We are going to do free cash flow to equity when we start business valuation. Okay, we are just applying, we are just copying a figure from the computation of free cash flow to equity. So pardon me, free cash flow to equity after interest, tax, and net reinvestment. The company consistently reinvests 30% of the free cash flow within the firm and makes the balance available for distribution to investors. And the free cash flow to equity model has provided a reasonable estimate of the company's equity market valuation in the past. Now, how do we tackle this question? To tackle this question, let's go and state our free cash flow to equity. And what does it mean? Free cash flow to equity. Now, ordinarily, when we say free cash flow is a discretionary cash flow. That's another name for free cash flow. A discretionary what? Cash flow. A discretionary cash flow is the cash flow that you can use at your own discretion. That cash flow is not tied to any obligation. Okay? You have settled all necessary obligations. So the cash flows left with you is that cash flow that can be utilized at your own way, the way you like. That is free cash flow. When we relate this to a company, free cash flow will be said to be cash flows that are available to companies after all necessary business obligations, provisions, and the like have been duly met. You have settled your employees. You have made all necessary provisions for replacement of assets. You have made provision for working capital. The cash flow left with you after all this is what we call free cash flow. That free cash flow can be divided into two. You can have free cash flow to equity holders. You can have free cash flow to the firm. I repeat, you can have free cash flow to equity holders. That is the one given to us in this question. You can also have free cash flow to the firm. When we say free cash flow to the firm, we are talking about the free cash flow that is available for distribution to both equity holders and debt holders. These are the two providers of finance for the company. So after we have settled all the business obligations, the cash flow that is available for distribution to both equity holders and debt holders is what we call free cash flow to the firm. Now, if you have settled debt holders, you have made all business provisions, you have settled all business obligations, including the obligation to debt holders, then it means the cash flows left is only meant for equity holders. So we refer to that as free cash flow to equity holders. And then how do we compute, how do we obtain our free cash flow to equity holders? We obtain our free cash flow to equity holders by making necessary adjustments to our what do you call it? To our income statement, which I'm not going to go to that detail now. Now, if I want to get the market value of equity, if I want to obtain my market value of equity, I can use free cash flow to equity. And how will I do that? I will discount. Let me go back to what we just did. When I wanted to get the market value of, let me go to the more realistic one. This one we have here. When I wanted to get the market value of this debt, what did I do? I discounted interest using the cost of the debt. I mean, because interest is what is available to equity to debt holders. Now, if I want to get the market value of equity, one of the methods I can use is the free cash flow model. That is one of the models I can use to obtain my market value of equity. Free cash flow model. Now, I will discount my free cash flow to equity using cost of equity. That's it. I will discount my market value of, I will discount my free cash flow to equity using the cost of equity. I will get my market value of equity. If I want to get market value of the firm as a whole, that is market value of debt and market value of equity, I will discount free cash flow to the firm using weighted average cost of capital, because the free cash flow to the firm is for both equity and debt holders. So the appropriate cost of capital is the WACC, because WACC is having both equity, both cost of equity and cost of debt. So if I discount my free cash flow to the firm using WACC, I get market value of the firm. If I discount my free cash flow to the equity using cost of equity, I get market value of equity. So that concept is explained. I mean, that has been explained. Now, what do I need to do now? If I want to know the extra profit this 2,400 debt should bring in order to maintain my existing profit level, the first thing I need to know is that I will go and discount my current free cash flow. I will discount the current free cash flow. Okay? I will discount it using my current cost of equity in order to get my current market value of equity based on free cash flow to equity. When I do that, I will now rearrange the formula. At the current market value of equity, I will compute a new free cash flow to equity. That new free cash flow to equity is the free cash flow to equity that I should earn at the new level of debt I'm taking. This is what I'm saying. Don't let me go theoretical. Let me be practical so that everyone will understand what I'm saying here. This is the formula. I've given you the formula for dividend valuation model. The same thing we are going to modify here. You can have a situation where free cash flow is constant. You can have a situation where free cash flow is growing. Now, if I want to use my free cash flow to compute my market value of equity, I will have market value of equity is equal to free cash flow to equity, okay, into bracket 1 plus growth rate. That is where my free cash flow is growing, okay, where my free cash flow is growing. I will not say over, I want to make the formula good enough for you to understand. So all over cost of equity minus what? Minus growth rate. I gave you this formula when we're computing when we're discussing the computation of cost of equity. I mean, the only thing you had there was that where we have free cash flow to equity, what I put there was what? Dividend. Okay, so there's no any confusion here. Now, our free cash flow to equity is 400. What's our cost of equity? Our cost of equity, current cost of equity, because these are what? These are current, let me put it there, so that you understand. I only want you to understand everything I'm doing here. So I like providing a very much detail that will enable you to understand everything perfectly. So this is my current what? Free cash flow to equity. So in order to discount this current free cash flow to equity, I need what? I need current cost of equity. And what's my current cost of equity? My current cost of equity is 8.5%. So because current, I want to discount current free cash flow to equity, I need current cost of equity. Now, you now ask yourself, is this cash flow growing or constant? Let me ask you, look at the question. Let me go back to that question so that you can see. Look at this question. Do you have any information in this question that suggests that free cash flow is growing or not? Look at it closely. Look at it closely. I'm waiting for you. I want you to contribute. I want you to contribute. Is there any information in this question that suggests that free cash flow is growing or not? We don't know, Abby. We don't know. Okay, let me show you. When we're computing, that's why I told you that in strategic financial management, you transfer knowledge from one topic to another. Okay? You don't say, oh, because I don't like cost of capital, Gary. I need a business. I like business valuation. I don't like a business valuation, Gary. I like a merger and acquisition. Or I don't like cost of capital. I like a investment appraiser. Please, don't have that mindset. Do not have that mindset. If you do, you see that you start having several issues where you will not be able to tackle questions across the syllabus because the syllabus, the topics are what? The topics of the syllabus are linked, they interwoven. Okay? Now, when we're treating cost of equity, I told you that our growth rate of dividend can be computed in two ways. When you have historical dividend, Abby, and when you can also use what? Gordon. I think these are the two I explained there. And I told you then that this growth rate is not limited to only dividend growth. It can be used to calculate anything that is growing at all. It's not limited to growth, to dividend. You can apply it to any other aspect of the subject where you have other things growing. Now, in this question I'm given free cash flow, I want to know whether my free cash flow is growing or constant. Now look at this information. Already, we do not have series of free cash flow here. So the issue of historical free cash flow does not arise. So the only one we can test now is Gordon. Now, the question tells you that the company consistently reinvests 30% of the free cash flow. And we know that our Gordon is what? G is equal to RB, where R is return on equity and B is what? Proportion of N is retained. Now, in this case now, it's not going to be proportion of N is retained, but what? Proportion of free cash flow retained. Proportion of free cash flow retained. We are retaining 30%. And what is our R? Our R is return on equity. Now, then I told you that in a situation where you don't have return on equity, you use what? Cost of equity. I remember I explained that to you, that in a situation where you want to use Gordon growth rate, but the question does not give you return on equity, but you have cost of equity. Now, you need to assume that the cost of equity is the same as the return on equity, okay? It's the same as the return on equity. So, what should I assume here? Let's go back to our solution. My growth rate here, my growth rate, which is G, will be equal to RB. So, let me just continue that way so that we don't waste much. Now, what is our R? Our R is return on equity, 8.5%. Our B is proportion of free cash flow retained, which is what? 30%. This will give me my growth rate. So my growth rate will be G is equal to 0.085 plus 0.085 times 0.3 is 0.0, that's 25.5%. 25.5% is the growth rate of free cash flow. That is the growth rate of free cash flow. Now, what do I need to do? I simply put it in that formula. Sorry, it's 25 or not 26. 25.5. But please, as I'm doing it, ensure you are doing it along with me so that there will not be any mistake in our solution. Now, the market value of equity is, my free cash flow to equity is what? 400. 400 into bracket, 1 plus growth rate is 0.0255, close bracket. Everything here over what? Everything over cost of equity, which is 0.085 minus 0.0255. So with this, you copy, paste. So I will have 400 times what? 1.55, and this is going to be 0.085 minus 0.0255. That is 0.0595. 0.0595. Sorry. 0.0595. 0.0595. So our market value of equity will be equal to, multiply this and divide 400 times 1.0255 all over 0.0595. We have 6,894. 6,894.12. These are free cash. These are what? These are market value of equity presently when our debt was 800 million. Okay, at a point where our debt is 800 million, this was what? Our market value of equity. Now, when our debt is now 800 million, what should be the free cash flow to equity? So what will I do? I will bring down that formula. I bring down this formula. I will now make free cash flow to equity the subject of the formula. So how do I do that? I'm going to have free cash flow to equity into bracket 1 plus G into bracket, that's when I cross multiply 1 plus G is equal to market value of equity into bracket cost of equity minus the growth rate. So divide both sides by what? By 1 plus growth rate. So I have my free cash flow to equity to be equal to market value of equity into bracket cost of equity minus growth rate everything over what? Over 1 plus G. Over 1 plus G. You can see that I have rearranged this formula. Why do I need to rearrange it? Because I want to get another free cash flow. Already I know my market value. Okay? Since I know my market value, then I can get my market value of equity. Sorry, I can get my free cash flow to equity. So I need to make free cash flow to equity the subject of the formula so that I will get the new free cash flow to equity when our debt has now increased to what? 2,400. So let us continue. However, you should know that we are dealing with the new situation, Abby. This one was under the current situation. From here now, is under the new situation. Under the new situation, we have another what? Cost of equity. True or false? So I need to compute another growth rate. I already know my market value. I already know my what? I know my market value. I need to compute a new cost. I know my market value. I know my cost of equity. I now need to compute a new growth rate. So cost of equity under this new situation is what? Let me put it expected. Let me put it from here. Expected cash flow. So that when we are revising, it should be easy for you to follow. Expected what? Free cash flow to equity. Okay, expected free cash flow to equity. So our cost of equity is 9.22%. 9.22%. So our growth rate is going to be the cost of equity of 9.22% times the retention rate of what? 30%. So my growth rate will be equal to 9.22, 0.0922 times 0.3. That is 0.028. Okay, that is 27.66%. Yeah, we used 5 before. Yes, 27.66%. That's our growth rate. That's our growth rate of free cash flow. So I can now go and apply this in the formula. Free cash flow to equity will be equal to market value of equity. I just copy this one. This is the market value of equity currently. I bring it down. This is market value of equity into bracket cost of equity 0.0922 minus the growth rate 2766. Is this correct? Okay, let me confirm that growth rate. 0.0922 times 0.3. That's 100. I'm coming, 1 minute. Okay, this one is not even 25. This one is not 25. I think it's 2.55%. It's 2.55%. Yeah. Others are correct. When you multiply, it's 2.55%. So this one is this one is 22.76%, or you can say 2.77%. 2.77%. To 2 decimal places, because the first one I rounded it off to 2 decimal places. So the second, I want to be consistent. So into bracket 0.0277. Okay, close the brackets. Everything here, all over. Everything here over. Okay. 1 minute, please. Let me close this gap a little. Okay, yeah, I think it's better this way. So 1 plus G. G is 0.0277. This is how you get your new free cash flow to equity. So free cash flow to equity will be equal to 6,894.12 into bracket. Let's deduct 0.0922 minus 0.0277. 0.0645. into bracket 0.0645. So all over what? All over 1.0277. So let's get our free cash flow to equity. Free cash flow to equity. Free cash flow to equity. Now be equal to multiply and divide. I have 6,894, 6,894.12 times 0.0645 divided by 1.0277. 432.69. 432.69. That is the free cash flow to equity that I must what make under the new debt. But look at what the question asks you to compute. The question did not say what should be the free cash flow. The question say what should be the additional, the minimum required return on what? On the new debt. Please take note. Is on the debt as a sort of the debt alone. Okay? What should be the profit that we accrue to this company as a result of taking the new debt alone? So what will I do? I will come here. I will compare the initial free cash flow with the new one. That will be the additional. Okay? So what will I do? Expected free cash flow. Expected free cash flow to equity is what? Is 432.69. What about the current? Current free cash flow to equity is 400. Is 400. 400.00. So what is the increase? What is the increase? Sorry. What is the increase? The increase is 32.69. 32.69. That's the free cash flow that this debt must generate for us. If we take this new debt, our free cash flow should increase by 32.69. That is not where we are going to, because look at the requirement. The requirement is minimum return. Minimum return. Okay, minimum required return on the new debt before interest is paid. No, free cash flow is not return. When the question says return, okay, minimum return, required return, it means the question wants you to compute profit. Okay, it's profit, not cash flow. Now, from my free cash flow, I can get my profit. Free cash flow means that it's what? It's the question tells you that it's what? Is after interest and tax. If you go and look at the question, it's after interest and what? And tax. The free cash flow given to you there is after interest and tax. So what do I need to do? I will now need to go and convert it to before interest and tax. Now, since this one is after tax, I will convert it to what? Before tax. So let's continue. Free cash flow to equity after tax. After tax is what we have here as 32.69. 32.69. Now, I will now have to change it to what? I will have to convert it to pre-tax. This post-tax, I will have to convert it to pre-tax. How will I do that? I will gross it up. I will gross it up. So free cash flow to equity before tax. Before tax. I will gross this one up. It will be 32.69 all over 1 minus tax rate. 1 minus tax rate. That's how you gross it up. So that should be equal to what? 32.69 all over 1 minus 0 minus 0.25. So let's do this one directly. We have 32.69 divided by 0.75. That gives me what? 43.59. 43.59. 43.59. That's the what? That is the free cash flow to equity before tax. Now, we need before interest, Abi. This before tax. We need before interest and tax. So it means I need to go and look at what is going to be the increase in interest I'm going to pay if I take up this new debt. You know, we are now having two debt, Abi. 800. We were paying interest on 800 before, but we have redeemed the 800. We are now paying interest in what? On 2,400. Now, what is the difference in interest? When we were paying interest at 800, and now that we are paying interest at what? 2,400. You compute the difference. So, what will I do? I will compute my revised interest. Revised interest. Revised interest is, what's our coupon? 5.45% times 2,400 times 2,400 should give me what? 0.0545. 0.0545 times 2,400 is 130.8. 130.8. Now, what is the current interest? Current interest is at 5.6%. 5.6% times 800 times 800. What would that give us? What would that give us? 0.056 times 800. That gave us 40. That gave us 40. So I have my 40 here. Now, remove this 40. You remove this one, this 40 here, from that 130. We remove it from 130. That is the additional interest we are going to pay. Okay? That's the additional interest we are going to pay. Incremental interest. Okay? That's your incremental interest. If you redeem the existing debt and issue the new debt, instead of you to be paying interest at 40, you now be paying interest as what? 130. So what is the incremental? 130.8 minus 40. That's 90.8. So I have my 90.80. Add these two together. Add these two together. When you add these two together, you have what? You have 90.8 plus 43.59. We have 134.39. 134.39. Okay. Now, this what? This represents my free cash flow to equity before it's no longer free cash flow to equity anyway, because already we have included interest. I mean, so I cannot call it free cash flow to equity again, because interest is already inclusive. Okay. What's wrong with you? Go away from here now. Okay, so this is going to be what? Minimum required profit, okay, before interest and tax. Before interest and tax. Okay, before interest and tax. This is the minimum required profit before interest and tax. Now, The question say minimum required return, abi. Anytime you hear return, please compute it as a percentage. So percentage return, okay? Minimum, minimum, minimum required percentage what? Return. Will not be equal to the return, the profit return here require 113.439 all over the debt we are taking. We are taking 2,400 debt times 100. So let's compute it. 134.39 divided by 2,400 times 100. 5.5, okay, approximately 5.6%. 5.6% is the minimum required return on the new debt before interest is paid. It sounds complicated, Abby. Hello? Question, please. I know it's very highly technical, but please ensure you understand it. Ensure listening to the video over and over again. And after listening to the video, try to solve it again on your own. Try to solve it again on your own. Don't just read it from the note. No. After listening to the video several times, please close your notes, close the note, then solve it on your own. That is how you can know that you have mastered it. If you think you have mastered it from your note, you might just be, it might just be deceitful, please. It might be deceitful, please. Okay. Any question here? Any question? Any question? No question, Abby? Okay. If there's no question, let us go and solve the last part of the question. That is D. That is D. A comparison of the proposed method of raising capital for investment and with alternative method. Now, don't make a mistake. The question is not asking you to start explaining sources of financing. The question does not ask you to start explaining different sources of finance. No. Now, this company proposed to raise finance for this debt by issuing what? Bonds. Abi? By issuing bonds. Now, if we want to finance a project and we want to use debt, but we don't want to issue the debt through bonds, what other method can we use? Don't tell me long-term bank loan. There is limits to which you can use a long-term bank loan. Look at the amount the company wants to raise. 2,400 million. That is 2.4 billion. $2.4 billion. So the bank might not be able to give you this through a mere bank loan. Yes, sir. So bank loan should not be part of your consideration. I've told you the reason now. Because of the huge amount of money involved in the investment. What you should consider is another bond, another way of raising the what? The finance that is similar to what? To bond. That is similar to bond. And of course, if you want to issue capital, okay, that is huge enough, such as the one Jupiter is considering, and you don't want to use bond, alternative finance you can use that is still debt is what we call syndicated loan. Syndicated loan. Okay, let me put it down. An alternative way of issuing of obtaining finance, of obtaining finance of this nature is through a syndicated loan arrangement. Now, I just put this on briefly. This is not the way you should start your solution. The question says a comparison of the proposed method of raising capital for investment with alternative method. So the first thing you need to do is to explain the current proposed method of raising the finance, which is what? Through bond. You need to explain bond, the advantages and disadvantages of what? Of using bonds. Okay? The advantages and disadvantages of using bond. You have to explain it. Then you now go to syndicated loan. Also explain the advantages and disadvantages. That is how you compare. You don't just go and say, oh, the alternative is syndicated loan. No. The question wants you to make a comparison of bond and syndicated what? Syndicated loan. Now, when a company want to raise capital through bond, you can use bond to raise a huge amount of money, such as the one Dividend is considering here, isn't it? You can raise a considerable amount of capital from the bond market. However, the interest rate on bond is high. Okay, interest rate on bond is what? Is high. Okay, and if you issue bond, there is no guarantee that the bond will be fully subscribed. You may issue bond of 2,400 million, for instance, to the public for subscription. And at the end of the day, the public ended up subscribing to 1,500 of the bond. And you need 2,400 million to finance that project. What do? Except you want to go and seal up an arrangement with your what? With your issuing house, where the issuing house will guarantee you that if the bond is not being fully subscribed, then it will be, the balance unsubscribed will be what? Will be taken over. So apart from that, you may end up getting a lower what? Amount than what you need for your investment. But when you use a syndicated loan, what is syndicated loan? Syndicated loan is a loan arrangement that is organized by a group of banks, okay? A group of banks led by what? A bank, one of the banks, where loans are arranged for a huge amount across border. Look at this company, Jupiter. want to raise loan from what? Japan and from Europe. So the appropriate means of raising that bond is through a syndicated loan, because syndicated loan will allow banks from different jurisdictions, okay, from different countries to come together and provide that finance to you. That is what we call syndicated loan. And the advantage of syndicated loan is that you can get huge amount of finance, just like we have it in bond. Also, you can get loan denominated in various currency of the countries of the world. Meanwhile, the rate of syndicated loan is not also as high as that of bond. Okay? However, the greatest disadvantages, okay, the two greatest disadvantages of a syndicated loan is that, number one, any of the bank can back out of the agreement. After we have come, we say, the bank have agreed that they are going to provide you with that finance. Any of these banks can say, okay, I'm no longer interested, and it backs out. And that can affect the arrangement, because the arrangement is not a binding contract. It is not binding on the what? On the banks, neither is it binding on you. It is until the finance has been provided that you now have a binding what? Contract. Also, if you obtain loan through a syndicated loan, you don't forget that you will have gotten loan from different countries, Abi, and the country's currency are not the same. So it means, let us assume that you are in Nigeria, you have borrowed money from the euro, and you have also gotten the Japanese yen. If you want to pay interest, and even when you want to repay the loan, it means you have to repay part of it as what? As euro, and another part of it as what? As yen. Now, that will involve you converting your naira to that or to those foreign currencies, okay? That will involve you converting your naira to those foreign currencies. And of course, in the process of conversion, there's going to be fluctuation in what? In exchange rate. So if exchange rate has moved against you, exchange rate will move against you if your own currency has depreciated. Okay? When your currency depreciates, it means more of the naira will be needed to get 1 unit of euro, for instance, because the euro has what? Has strengthened. The euro has appreciated against the naira. In that case, you will need to pay more naira in order to what? To settle interest payment, and even when you want to redeem that what? That debt. So it's a major what? Disadvantage of syndicated loan. Now, we are going to take interest rate and currency risk management. That's going to be the last topic I'm going to take you. I will take it as the last topic because it's a bit wide and highly technical. So I always want to take my student that topic as the last topic so that it can be fresh in your memory, because it is a recurrent what? It's a recurrent, what do you call it? Recurrent question in the exam. Okay, every diet I can must set edging. So let us write on what I've just explained. Okay, let's write briefly on that. The proposed method of raising finance for investment through bonds through bond issue will enable the company to raise a considerable large sum of fund, for the investment. However, the interest rate on bonds is often high. Also, when a company issues bonds to the public for subscription, the bond may not be fully subscribed. In this case, Jupiter may not be able to raise the actual amount needed for the project. This risk may, however, be avoided if Jupiter goes through an issuing house to issue the bond, and signed an agreement that will mandate the issuing house to take up the balance of the bond, if not fully. What happened? Can you hear me? What happened, Mr. Shem? Can you talk to me? What's the issue?
I want to do something, that's why.
Hey, so we should not leave it there and go. Let's complete this question, please. Please. So that we don't come back to it next week, next class. So, take up the balance of the bond, if not fully subscribed. Though this will involve additional cost to Jupiter. Okay. So you have explained bond now. Okay. You have explained bond. Now, an alternative way of obtaining finance of this nature is through is through a syndicated loan where banks syndicated loan arrangements where banks from different countries or jurisdictions come together to provide debt finance. This will allow Jupiter to raise funds in different currencies. However, the company will be exposed to exchange rate risk. Any of the bank may also default in the provision of the loan. Default provision. Okay, Mrs. Shem, you know what I can deduce from what he said? Hello, are you there?
Yes, sir.
I can see that you do understand the solution, Abby.
I understand.
Mrs. Chiwe, you do understand?
Yeah, I believe if I can go through again.
You said?
The solution is somehow. I said it's somehow, but if I can go through again, I understand.
Please. Yeah, go through it. You know, we are now having one link, Abby. It should be very easy for me to generate our video now. Unlike the one that I have to generate several videos. You understand? So now it will be easy, it's just one video. I will download and send to you. Latest tomorrow morning, you will get it. You understand? So that you can watch the video again, watch it over and over again, it will stick. There's no doubt about that. Because we are doing it for the first time. Okay? So,
Okay, sir.
shall we call it a day here at the juncture?
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Mrs.
sir.
Shea, you can go and eat now. I know you want to go and eat. That's why I want us to abort the class prematurely.
Already past 7.
So we meet on Thursday by God bless. Good night.